Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
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 Thank you. Thanks.
Oh, thank you.
Deo, Deo.
Baby's got a booger and a shooter and that shake is all go down. Baby's got a booger and a shooter and that shake is all go down. Corrosion to her thighs, erosion of her pride. Baby's got a shooter. Baby's got corrosion now. Corrosion now. Baby's got it.
Greetings and salutations from the North Pole. Hopefully you can hear me. If not, maybe it's better that way. It's Friday. It's Friday the 13th. Yeah, like every day hasn't already been Friday the 13th, right? Looks like everybody's snoozing right now. That's fine. I hope you're enjoying your Friday. It's currently 34 degrees here in the Chicagoland area. And some of you be thinking, wow, that's cold. You're like, no. Especially those days it was below freezing. That was fun. And fun being terrifying. Especially when the wind kicks up. When that wind kicks up and it's that cold, forget about it. Hang on a second. I gotta fix my heat. Ooh, look at that. I got some sort of science going on there. What? All right, that's good enough. All right. We've been trying to keep these somewhat brief, but we have a very long propaganda watch today. There's more stories in that than there is in the main block today, which is abnormal. But in the grand scheme, is it really that abnormal? Probably not. So let's get down to it. U.S. Border Chief says Trump agrees to end deportation surge in Minnesota. So much like it was here in Chicago, they did their little surge, and then they got kicked out, and now it looks like they're leaving Minnesota for the most part. Tom Homan, the U.S. Border Security Chief, says that the immigration crackdown in Minnesota that led to mass detentions, protests, and 2 deaths is coming to an end. As a result of our efforts here, Minnesota is now less of a sanctuary state for criminals, Homan said at a news conference on Thursday, pushing one of those bullshit talking points. I have proposed, and President Trumpy has concurred, that this surge operation conclude. So ICE launched Operation Metro Surge in Minnesota on December 1st as Trump frequently rebuked the state and its sizable Somali community, because old Trumpy got a little bit of the racism going on there. That's from his daddy who was in the Klan. That's a true story if you didn't know that. Homan said ICE operations would continue as they did before the operations began, so there'll still be terrorists there, just not as many. Through targeted enforcement operations based on reasonable suspicion and prioritizing safety and security, ICE will continue to identify, arrest, and remove illegal aliens who pose a risk to public safety, as we've done for years, he said. Federal authorities say the sweeps focused on the Minneapolis-St. Paul metro area have led to the arrest of more than 4,000 people. Don't forget those 2 deaths. 3, I think. Is there 3? Maybe. Well, not there. There's 2 there. While the Trump administration has called those arrested dangerous, criminal, illegal aliens, many people with no criminal records, including children and U.S. citizens, have also been detained. That's right. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz said on Thursday he was cautiously optimistic after the Trump administration's announcement of drawing down the immigration crackdown in his state. They left us with deep damage, generational trauma, Walz told reporters. They left us with economic ruin in some cases. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey also welcomed the announcement, likening the immigration operation to military occupation. They thought they could break us, but a love for our neighbors and a resolve to endure can outlast an occupation, Frey wrote on the tweeters. These patriots of Minneapolis, the patriots are showing that it's not just about resistance. Standing with our neighbors is deeply American. Reporting from the White House, Al Jazeera's Alan Fisher said the operation in Minnesota proved to be a public relations disaster for Trump, citing opinion polls showing public opposition to ISIS tactics. Turns out they don't like Gestapo in their streets. How about that? Isn't that crazy? What a crazy thing to think, right? It was bad publicly for Donald Trump, and he was getting a great deal of criticism, not just from Democrats, but not just from people in the state, but from Republicans around the country as well, that this was not the image that they wanted to portray, Fisher said. Holman's announcement came as U.S. legislatures were holding hearings questioning government officials over the immigration crackdown in Minnesota, which saw mass protests and the killing of Alex Preddy and Renee Good by federal agents. These were straight up murders. Senators on Thursday went through a frame-by-frame presentation of the video of the shooting of Preddy, arguing that he did not pose a danger to the officer and that immigration agents failed to de-escalate the situation. Yes, not only did they fail to de-escalate the situation, they escalated it. That's how they didn't de-escalate shit. They jacked that shit up. They took away his gun, like kicked it across the street. He didn't have any weapon on him, and then they capped him. That's an assassination right there, folks. Some top Trump immigration officials had called Preddy a terrorist after the incident, even though he was a nurse at a VA hospital. Those terrorists, them, claiming that he planned to shoot federal officers. It's terrible police work, Republican Senator Rand Paul said of the incident. There has to be, to ultimately be repercussions. I think he's retreating at every moment. He's trying to get away, and he's being sprayed in the face. Yeah, there's that too. He got sprayed in the face. I don't think that's de-escalatory. Paul warned top immigration officials at the hearing, including ICE Director Rodney Scott, that if the probe into the killing of Preddy does not lead to accountability and changes, it would destroy trust in the agency. Spoiler alert, there's always been distrust in the agency, particularly in recent years. Man, we got some lurkers. That's fine. I guess must be something going on this morning. No worries. This is going on right here. Let me rub these nips for you. Nobody else is going to do that for you, at least not this early in the morning. We got more newsy news. So, U.S. House votes down tariff rule in rebuke to Trump. Captain Haircut here on his phone. Probably talking to his AI girlfriend. The House of Representatives has rejected a rule pushed by Republican leaders to prevent votes challenging Donald Trump's tariffs in a significant rebuke of the president and his allies in Congress. The measure proposed by Mike Johnson, not my Johnson, Mike Johnson. The House Speaker was defeated on Tuesday with 217 lawmakers voting against it, including all Democrats and 3 Republican dissidents, while 214 lawmakers approved. The votes suggest lawmakers on Capitol Hill are increasingly prepared to challenge Trump's aggressive trade agenda, which has disrupted global commerce and threatened price rises in the U.S., or further price rises, it should be, because those prices been going up. The failure of the rule to protect Trump's tariffs from congressional opposition could pave the way for Democratic lawmakers, led by New York Congressman Gregory Meeks, to force a vote as soon as Wednesday on a resolution blocking Trump's tariffs on Canada. I just want to check something real quick here. One moment, please. Okay, very good. Very good. Interesting. Okay. Back to the story. Yeah, to force a vote as soon as Wednesday, which was this past Wednesday, I believe. Or maybe this coming Wednesday. While Trump could veto any votes by Congress against his tariffs, a rebuke from Republican lawmakers nevertheless sends a strong signal about growing discontent, indeed, within the president's party over his economic policies. Republicans control the House of Representatives by a razor-thin margin, meaning Johnson can only lose the support of a handful of party members in any contentious vote, assuming no Democrats cross party lines and vote with the Republicans. Thomas Massie of Kentucky, California's Kevin Kiley, and Don Bacon of Nebraska were the 3 decisive Republican votes. Johnson earlier on Tuesday told reporters the rationale for the rule was to allow the Supreme Court to rule on the pending case that everybody is watching and waiting for. The president's trade policies have been a great benefit to the country, Johnson added with a boot sticking out of his mouth. The sentiment is that we allow a little bit more runway for this to be worked out between the executive branch and the judicial branch. The U.S. Supreme Court is expected to rule on the legality of Trump's sweeping tariffs in the coming months. The question behind that is whether he has to get congressional approval first. That's probably what they're going to be talking about. The court in November heard arguments over whether the president had the authority to invoke the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA, to impose levies around the world. Congress has historically claimed the authority to regulate foreign commerce and levy taxes. No previous president has used IEEPA to impose tariffs. In an interview with Fox Business that aired on Tuesday, Trump said, "I just hope the Supreme Court does what is right for the country and right for me mostly. Well, actually right for me all the time. I heard he had a senior moment doing a speech the other day, going, hey, man, we all do it. Democrats expressed that the proposal to block tariff votes had failed. It is heartening that a handful of Republicans finally stood up to Trump to put a stop to this madness, said Don Bayer, a House Democrat from Virginia. I hope that more of our colleagues will join them as we move on to consider measures to terminate tariffs on Canada and other key allies and trading partners, he added. In a speech on the House floor on Tuesday, Democratic House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries accused Republican lawmakers of acting like nothing more than a reckless rubber stamp for Donald Trump's extreme agenda. He should know, since he is the reckless rubber stamp for the Democratic extreme agenda. So he should know. Pew polling published this week showed the vast majority of Americans against the Trump administration's tariff regime. According to Pew, 60% of U.S. adults disapproved of the increase in tariffs, including more than a quarter of Republicans. That's because people starting to learn what these tariffs are doing, and that's screwing people over. Screwing regular ass people over, right? It's like, oh, it's going to bring jobs. Nope. No, it's going to bring these production plants back, right? Nope. That's incorrect there, Fonzarelli. What do you got next here? Oh, so we were talking about this on the Undercurrent the other day. This is funny. About how they closed off the airspace over El Paso, I believe it's on Monday. But there's more to it apparently than the silly stuff that we were led to believe happened. Hang on just a second. Oh. Yeah, so all right, that's better. So here let's start with this one first. This is from antiwar.com from this was from Wednesday. So US military used new laser weapon to shoot down a party balloon it thought was a drone near El Paso. Yes, those vicious narco-terrorist party balloons that we've been hearing about. Not really. The U.S. military used a new high-energy laser weapon earlier this week to shoot down a party balloon that it initially thought was a foreign drone near El Paso, Texas. According to a U.S. official speaking to Fox News, the official said the U.S. military had been testing new anti-drone technology, including a laser. Ooh, those lasers. I love lasers. Laser 106. That's a Mississippi reference. Sorry about that. To shoot down a party balloon that it initially thought was a foreign drone near El Paso, Texas, according to a U.S. official speaking to Fox News. The official said the U.S. military had been testing new anti-drone technology, including a laser near the U.S. Army base at Fort Bliss. Wonder if people are happy there. After the laser weapon was used to shoot down what was initially assessed as a drone and later identified as a balloon, the airspace in the area was shut down by the FAA. Trump administration officials claim that the FAA and the Pentagon responded to a, quote, cartel drone incursion, despite the object being identified as a balloon. The threat has been neutralized and there is no danger to commercial travel in the region, said Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy. We took out that balloon. That balloon is not going to be fucking with nobody anymore. Or is it? Meanwhile, down in Mexico, President Claudia Sheinbaum said that her government had no information about a drone incursion and that Mexican airspace hadn't been closed. We have no information indicating drone activity along the border, she said. If the FAA or any U.S. government agency has relevant information, they can ask directly the government of Mexico. According to a report from CBS News, the FAA decided to close the airspace on Tuesday night over the U.S. military's testing of anti-drone technology near the El Paso International International Airport. The decision was taken without notifying the Pentagon or the White House, and it was reversed on Wednesday after discussions at the White House. El Paso Mayor Renard Johnson was very critical of the FAA's abrupt airspace shutdown, saying it was carried out without coordination with the local government. This unnecessary decision has caused chaos and confusion in the El Paso community. He said, you cannot restrict airspace over a major city without coordinating with the city, the airport, the hospitals, and community leadership. That failure to communicate is unacceptable, and it also messes up the taco sauce. You know, the old El Paso taco sauce. Do they still make that? Is that a thing? There's nobody here. Who cares? Well, they shot down some party balloon, right? But was it really a party balloon that they shot down? CBC voter, good morning. You're the first contestant on The Price is Right. None of these people are here, except for you and me. So you get a private showing today, CBC. So I hope you're doing well. All right, so they said it was a party balloon. Well, oopsie sauce. There were witnesses. Eyewitness video of mysterious craft hovering over El Paso upends Trump administration balloon claim. Claims that U.S. airspace was shut down because a party balloon had been popped by new video appearing to show party balloon. The claims have been popped. I see what they did there. They're trying to be clever, but that was too far away. By new video appearing to show a large hovering UFO over El Paso. An eyewitness driving near El Paso International Airport on Tuesday pulled over to record what they described as a mothership floating above the ground in the distance, which was releasing smaller objects from its underside. It was a mama ship. It had baby ships. Oh, hey, what's up, mystery? Okay. No, that's fine. Y'all ain't got to be here if you're listening. That's cool. I just looked up. Nobody was here. I was like, I checked to make sure everything was on. Made sure you could hear me. Okay, no, that's fine. It was kind of weird doing it by myself there. So, but kind of fun. I almost did something. I can't tell you. The sighting shared with crowdsourced UFO reporting platform Enigma. I guess that's an app on your phone, that specifically for UFO stuff, occurred just hours before a large swath of U.S. airspace was abruptly closed for, quote, special security reasons, unquote, at 11:30 p.m. Mountain Time on February 10th. The mysterious shutdown was originally announced to last for 10 days and included all commercial, cargo, and general flights within a 10-mile wide area, roughly 5 miles southwest of El Paso from the ground up to 18,000 feet. However, the chaotic shutdown by the FAA, what a government agency, chaotic, you never see that, was quickly called off, with the Trump administration changing the story of what triggered the alert multiple times within a matter of hours on Wednesday. White House officials initially announced the U.S. had taken down a Mexican cartel drone flying across the southern border, only to claim hours later that the object struck by a high-powered laser was a party balloon. Now, UFO researchers and witnesses in the area have alleged that something other than a balloon or drone was spotted on multiple days near the U.S.-Mexico border before the FAA warning. Looks like the mothership, it's huge, and there are stuff coming out from the bottom of it and going off to the left a little bit as it landed. That's what the driver on Tuesday said. So I guess this is not video, but apparently this little P right here, there's a little dot right there. That's the mothership. Large hovering object in El Paso, Texas, hours before temporary airport closure. I have to check out Enigma. I didn't know about that. And then there it is right there. That's groovy shit. According to the witness recording the hovering craft, it appeared on video like a dot after moving off far into the distance, but the object was allegedly incredibly large and looked somewhat like a blob. Enigma, which allows people to report sightings and share pictures or videos of UFOs on an app, also revealed that 2 other witnesses submitted strange sightings in the El Paso area, one on February 8th and another at 5:46 p.m. Eastern on the same day as the FAA shutdown. Both sightings involved what the witnesses described as floating orbs, giggity, high in the sky, which were clearly not normal planes or any type of military aircraft. Every time I use my drones in this area, especially in a certain frequency, I always have orbs run by, the witness on February 8th reported in a video on the Enigma app. However, the driver traveling by El Paso International Airport on Tuesday supplied the clearest evidence that what the military encountered was not a simple balloon. They are reporting today that it wasn't drones, but a party balloon. It never ceases to amaze me how stupid they think the public are, one commenter on the tweeters wrote. Well, I don't know, some people are pretty stupid. I'm just saying. I feel like I've seen this story before. One person on social media wrote, next to a picture of the weather balloon debris the military claimed was actual the Roswell UFO in 1947. However, many skeptics criticized the video for being so out of focus that it made a clear identification of the object impossible. So I guess this is where they were. This is the airspace that was shut down in El Paso. The White House did not mention any sightings of unidentified flying objects, also known as UAPs. I'll still call them UFOs because I'm OG like that. In their reports on Wednesday, officially, the U.S. government and the Pentagon have maintained that there has never been any physical evidence recovered proving UFOs or extraterrestrial beings exist. Of course not, because they got all that technology squirreled away somewhere. They definitely don't want you knowing that they got it. DARPA, where you at? Despite that declaration, it is considered highly unusual to close down U.S. airspace under the threat that violators may be shot down. The last time U.S. airspace was shut down for national security reasons was after the September 11th terror attacks. The FAA also temporarily closed airspace over New Orleans following Hurricane Katrina, but that was due to storm damage. And plus, there was a shit ton of looters there, too. Unlike previous restrictions, the El Paso closure blocked all flights over the city, including police and medical helicopters. It is a move rarely, if ever, seen in modern U.S. aviation. Rare indeed, isn't it? Makes you want to put your pinky up to your mouth. Trumpy has said that he's open to full disclosure of all UFO incidents. Yeah, right. And White House insiders have allegedly claimed Trump already has a speech prepared which addresses what the U.S. government knows about the possibility of alien life. And it goes a little something like this. We got so many alien bodies. We got ships. We got lunch boxes. We got Twinkies. We got hats. We got all this stuff ready for disclosure day, boy. These baby hands gonna be holding fat stacks of cash. I'm paraphrasing. Yeah, oh yeah, you're just in time, Chucky. Ding, ding. Yeah. According to the National UFO Reporting Center, or NUFORC, or NUFORCE, multiple witnesses have reported seeing large objects over the U.S., which they could only describe as a mothership. In fact, there have been 6 reports of large motherships, including some witnessing a smaller craft surrounding it or flying out of them since 2022. And don't forget the mothership for P-Funk. Make my funk to P-Funk. Y'all know what's up. That's the mothership I'm talking about. Every motherfunkin' day. So yeah, El Paso, a weird place, right? It always gets weirder when the feds are involved. What else we got here? All right, well, yeah, so we go further south down to Venezuela way, if you're into that sort of thing. Protesters march in Venezuela as National Assembly weighs amnesty bill. Apparently it was very thick, so they needed a scale, and they put it on. No, it's not. That's not what that means at all. Protesters have marched in dueling demonstrations in Venezuela's capital, Caracas, as the country's National Assembly weighed a bill that would grant amnesty to political prisoners. The demonstrations on Thursday marked Venezuela's National Youth Day and were the first major showing of opposition to the government led by interim President Delcy Rodriguez. She has led the country since the U.S. stole Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro in the night in January. They straight up stole that man and his wife. Her government called on its supporters to flood the streets with counter-protests, and both rallies attracted thousands of people. The show of defiance came as the National Assembly debated a landmark bill that would grant amnesty to political prisoners detained under Maduro. A final vote on the bill has been postponed, despite government statements previously indicating that it would be passed this week. Rodriguez has overseen the release of hundreds of political prisoners since taking office, in what has been seen as one of several concessions to the administration of the United States President Donald Trumpy, the Trumpster. Other moves have included staunching Venezuelan oil deliveries to Cuba and passing legislation to open the country's state-controlled oil industry to more foreign companies. An amnesty for political prisoners has long been a central demand of the opposition and human rights organizations. However, critics have raised concerns over how the legislation, if passed, would be implemented and who would be eligible for release. The bill has not yet received a public reading. Rodriguez had announced the amnesty legislation last month, saying it was designed to heal the wounds left by the political confrontation fueled by violence and extremism. She said it would cover what she described as the entire period of political violence from 1999 to the present. The amnesty bill covers charges of treason, terrorism, and spreading hate that were used to lock up dissidents over the past 2 decades. It would not apply to those convicted of murder, drug trafficking, maybe some drug trafficking, right? Yeah, remember that Honduras guy? Corruption or human rights violations, according to reports about the legislation. Alex Nev, a member of the UN Independent International Fact-Finding Mission for Venezuela, said earlier this week that the bill offers an opportunity to provide justice and alleviate the suffering of the many people who have been unlawfully detained for political reasons in Venezuela. However, Nev said that transparency was essential and civil society groups must be at the center of this process. Already, human rights groups have questioned the Rodriguez government's efforts to free political prisoners. The Venezuelan-based human rights group Foro Penal, that says penal, has confirmed at least 431 people have been released, a figure lower than the government's stated number. More than 600 political prisoners remain in custody, according to Foro Penal's statistics. I can't get over that name. Critics also point to the case of Juan Pablo Juanipa, an opposition politician who was recently released, only to be placed under house arrest. Still, the amnesty bill has been hailed as a breakthrough for a country that up until recently denied having political prisoners at all. The bill is also slated to lift measures banning several opposition leaders from running for office, including Nobel Peace Prize laureate and crazy lady Maria Corina Machado. The bill is also slated to lift measures. She's going to be back. The Maduro government had been accused of using state violence to suppress the opposition, including through forced disappearances and torture. It had also faced accusations of election rigging, most recently in 2024, when Maduro controversially claimed a third term as president. Yeah, but they had voting election watchers there too, so. Machado had been elected the opposition coalition's nominee for the 2024 election, but she was barred from running only months before the vote, as was her successor, Corina Yoris. Edmundo Gonzalez ultimately took on the role as the opposition's candidate. The opposition has maintained Gonzalez was the rightful winner of the election, a position backed by independent experts. On Monday, National Assembly leader Jorge Rodriguez, the president's brother, ruled out holding new presidential elections in the immediate future, telling the U.S. media outlet Newsmax, oh boy, that stabilization must first be achieved. Yeah, Newsmax. The Trump administration has also dismissed pressure for new elections in Venezuela, despite Machado's claims that the opposition has a mandate to govern. So also on Thursday, Trump took to his Truth Social account to deny that the U.S. oil magnate Harry Sargent III had authority to make decisions on behalf of his administration in Venezuela. He has no authority in any way, shape, or form to act on behalf of the U.S. of A. The U.S. of A. Nor does anyone else that is not approved by the State Department. Without this approval, no one is authorized to represent our country. Trumpy wrote, the post appeared to be in response to media reports that Sargent had been advising the U.S. administration about how to gain access to Venezuela's vast oil reserves, a top goal for Trump, even though he said he was going for drug dealers. He's looking for drug. He meant Earl dealers. Sargent, who has long-standing ties to Venezuela's oil industry, is a Republican donor who also plays golf with Trump, of course. In his post, Trump added his administration was dealing very well with the Rodriguez-led government. Relations between Venezuela and the U.S. have been, to put it mildly, extraordinary, Trump said in his post, but we speak only for ourselves and don't want there to be any confusion or misrepresentation. On Wednesday, Trump's Energy Secretary Chris Wright met with Rodriguez in Caracas, where he touted cooperation on oil production. The trip marked the first time a member of Trump's cabinet had visited the country since they stole their president. So people are saying who are worried about the vice president down there who was taken over. It's all all nice and wordy, but they're still puppets. They're still puppets, and that was the whole goal, to make Venezuela a puppet down there. When you steal the figurehead, that's what happens. But Cuba's having none of this bullshit from the United States, as Mexican ships carrying humanitarian aid enter Havana Harbor. Two Mexican flag ships loaded with humanitarian aid entered Havana Harbor early yesterday, Reuters witness said, as Cuba's longtime ally made good on a promise to assist after Washington threatened tariffs on countries that send oil to Cuba. One of the ships, the Papa John's, one of the ships carried large quantities of white-wrapped pallets on its deck as it passed between the El Morro Castle before entering the quiet waters of the harbor. The shipment from Mexico arrives just days after the island's communist-run government announced increasingly strict rationing measures to confront U.S. efforts to cut off Cuba's fuel supply and everything else, too. Washington in January threatened tariffs on countries that supply oil to the island, saying that Cuba poses an extraordinary threat to U.S. national security, a claim Havana denies. Yes, those cigars are amazing, by the way. You really shouldn't smoke, but if you're going to smoke a nice Havana, a nice Cuban cigar. So tasty. But don't inhale it. That's stupid. Just get a little taste, Maybe have a nice cognac. Mexico announced the aid delivery after halting shipments of crude and refined products to Cuba in mid-January under pressure from the Trump administration. These ships set sail from the port of Veracruz with a cargo of more than 814 tons of supplies destined for the civilian population of the island of Cuba, Mexico's government said in a statement later in the day. The cargo included liquid and powdered milk, meat products, cookies, beans, rice, tuna and water, sardines, and vegetable oil, as well as personal hygiene items. The statement said, Edilberto Rodriguez, a 65-year-old Havana resident and state worker, watched the ships enter the harbor and praised Mexico for what he calls an unforgettable gesture. Mexico hasn't abandoned us, he said, even with pressure from a global superpower, the United States. They weren't afraid. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum said on Wednesday that her government will send a second shipment of humanitarian aid to Cuba in the coming days. So apparently what Mexico's next as the terrorist destination, right? How dare you defy us and give Cuba cookies, you sons of bitches. We got more news. Russia and China decry humanitarian situation in Cuba amid energy crisis. I wonder what the rest of the world was saying. The situation in Cuba is very difficult, and the Russian Foreign Ministry, along with its embassy in Cuba, is in constant close contact with local authorities, Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman and future ex-wife Maria Zakharova said on Thursday. Oh, Maria, you delicious, delicious Russian borscht. The Russian Foreign Ministry and the embassy in Havana are in constant close contact with the Cuban authorities, air carriers, and tour operators, Zakharova told a briefing. External forces are seeking to exacerbate the energy crisis in Cuba and expect to provoke public discontent, she added. In the context of the unprecedented measures taken by the U.S. to block shipments of energy resources to Cuba, that is, the energy blockade, including aviation fuel, has created a very difficult situation with flights operated by Russian domestic airlines, Rossiya and Severny Viter, the spokesperson said. In a similar context, the Russian embassy in Cuba said that Russia is considering supplying oil and petroleum products to Cuba as humanitarian aid. Russia is planning to supply oil and petroleum products to Cuba as humanitarian aid in the near future, diplomats told the Izvestia newspaper on Wednesday. The embassy noted that Havana needs the support of its allies, and Moscow has repeatedly expressed its willingness to assist in the matter. And if it's a nice little thumb in the eye of the United States at the same time, sure, a little icing on the cake there. China will support Cuba in the best way possible as the island grapples with an energy crisis following tougher measures imposed by President Trump's administration. A Chinese foreign military spokesperson confirmed on Wednesday. My emphasis on Trumpy is my own. I don't believe they called him Trumpy. I'm pretty sure they call him far worse. Speaking at a regular press briefing in Beijing, Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian said China will do what it can to assist Havana, and again condemned what he described as inhumane actions that deprive the Cuban people of their right to survival and development. When pressed on specific measures, however, Lin declined to confirm any concrete program, saying the next moves would depend on bilateral consultations with Havana. Argentina in the mix. Likewise, a wide array of social and political organizations under the Argentine Movement for Solidarity with Cuba, or Mas Cuba, has launched a national campaign aimed at raising funds and sending humanitarian aid to the Caribbean nation. The initiative was officially launched on Wednesday, February 11th at the Argentine-Cuban Friendship House in Buenos Aires, a venue that brought together labor unions, political parties, and social movements. You're getting the socialists and the communists involved in here. Here we go. Ruben Luis Zacaro, president of the Friendship House, highlighted the urgency of the campaign, stating that the situation in Cuba has worsened considerably, leading to enormous suffering for all of Cuban society. Paula Klatchko, coordinator of the Argentine chapter of the Network of Intellectuals and Artists in Defense of Humanity, or RED, reinforced the call for solidarity, noting that Cuba needs us now more than ever and urging practical expressions of our solidarity with the Republic of Cuba. Klatchko also criticized the brutal oil blockade that seeks to leave Cuba in the dark, while the participating organizations released a joint statement rejecting the intensification of the economic, commercial, and financial blockade imposed by the U.S. over more than 6 decades. Organizers emphasized that the campaign responds to pressing needs in health and energy, areas severely affected by restrictions on fuel and essential supplies. Donations will be managed through a current account at Credit Coop Bank under the Argentine-Cuban Friendship House, ensuring transparent allocation of resources to the island. Beyond fundraising, the campaign includes cultural events, public gatherings, and the submission of a letter to the UN, I should say, demanding the end to the blockade. The joint statement described Cuba's situation as criminal isolation, underscoring that sanctions have direct impacts on hospitals, schools, and electricity generation. So the pronouncement urges the revocation of the executive order labeling Cuba as an extraordinary threat, the removal of the island from the U.S. list of state sponsors of terrorism, and the lifting of restrictions that block oil supplies. Organizers framed the campaign as an act of active solidarity, highlighting Cuba's contribution to health, education, and culture, while opposing economic measures that they say have humanitarian consequences. The initiative reflects a broader regional trend of renewed solidarity networks with Cuba among outgoing international debate over the effects of unilateral sanctions. Supporters argue that Cuba poses no threat to the U.S., and that the blockade unjustly punishes ordinary citizens. What the blockade denies, solidarity delivers, the statement affirmed, highlighting the moral dimension of the effort. It's also worth noting that political actors in Argentina have also expressed support for the campaign, combining grassroots mobilization with institutional backing and positioning the country as a key advocate for Cuba in regional diplomacy. I don't know about Argentina. Do not trust them with Malay down there doing dirty stuff. So, but I mean, what this might be though is the Streisand effect, thanks to the United States, right? So people have already been hyper aware of the atrocities that's going on in Palestine by the Israelis, right? So that, I mean, people have seen all the videos, they've seen all these bloody, people blowed up, kids shot, all this stuff, right? So they're already hyper tuned to that stuff already. Now you're talking about oppressing people in a country that's only 90 miles to your south. Is probably going to garner more attention than at least not the right kind of attention that the authorities wanted, right? Calling them terrorists and so everybody knows Cuba is not a threat to anybody. They're 1950s cars that they keep repairing for 60 years. They're not a threat to anybody. They never have been. The idea of communism was the threat the whole time. And you had to oppress those people to make sure that the rest of the world knows, like, see, look, they're not doing well. Well, you're oppressing them. No, we're not. We're just keeping stuff away from them. Dumb shit like that. So, Cuba. Fascinating stuff, right? The global south. And of course, the United States always fucking with it. Lastly, here we're going to talk about Greenland, a couple of stories. First, an update to what's going on there with the Swedes. Not blue Swede, but maybe. Sweden to deploy warplanes troops to Greenland. So Sweden is set to deploy fighter jets and ground troops to Greenland as part of NATO's newly launched Arctic Sentry mission, Reuters reported on yesterday. The deployment comes as the alliance moves to reinforce its Arctic presence and ease tensions triggered by the U.S. annexation push. Stockholm described the move as strengthening deterrence in the Arctic and confirmed it will contribute air and land assets as NATO works to project alliance unity in the region. A day earlier, NATO announced the launch of Arctic Sentry, a new security mission involving Allied air patrols and ground exercises aimed at increasing coordination in the Arctic and addressing tensions sparked by Trump's annexation threat on the basis of security. And that may very well be a true statement. I'll tell you why here in the next story. This strengthens deterrence, protects our common interests, and contributes to stability in a region that is crucial for Europe and transatlantic cooperation, according to Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson. Ulf said in a statement, Kristersson specified that Sweden will initially contribute to Arctic Sentry with JAS-39 Gripen aircraft in the area around Iceland and Greenland. In a separate statement, the Swedish military confirmed that troops would also operate on the ground in Greenland, though it did not disclose numbers. Swedish Air Force Rangers and Army Rangers will conduct exercises on Greenland for a couple of weeks, the Swedish Armed Forces said, though no timeline beyond the initial exercises were provided. Politico, citing a poll conducted by London-based Public First, recently reported that respondents in Canada, France, Germany, and the UK increasingly view the U.S. as an unreliable ally. That guy, with only 35% of UK respondents describing Washington as reliable. That's some 35% delusional people. This comes as Trump continues to float annexation proposals involving Greenland and other allied territories, such as Canada. Earlier polling on January 20th showed 55% of Britons or Britain's support expelling U.S. troops if Washington moves forward with annexing Greenland. Trump argues the island is vital to U.S. national security and must not fall under Russian or Chinese influence. Moscow rejected that claim, with Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman, you guessed it, Maria Zakharova, stating neither Russia nor China has announced any claims, and calling for disputes to be resolved through negotiation in accordance with international law. And Trump's like, international law? What's that? Is that like a, is that House of Pancakes? Danish Foreign Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen said earlier talks with the White House did little to change Washington's position. White House Press Secretary and Chucky Doll fiancée Carolyn Levitt said military force to take Greenland is always an option, prompting European leaders to respond in a joint statement that Greenland belongs to its people. All right. Well, and all this ridiculousness with Greenland, right? But wait, there's more. There's a little thing, a little history, recent history, if you consider the 60s somewhat recent history in Greenland. So it has something to do with a place called Camp Century and Project Iceworm, America's Cold War plot to build a nuclear city underneath Greenland. Now, two things, right? So here's like a picture of some of the stuff. This is all under the Greenland glaciers, right? And glaciers is important here. Project Iceworm envisioned a sprawling underground city in Greenland where the U.S. could house 600 nuclear missiles, but the project was shut down after less than a decade. For four short years after developing the first atomic bomb in 1945, the U.S. was the sole nuclear power in the world. But in 1949, the Soviet Union tested its first atomic weapon, rocketing the Cold War into a new era. As the two nuclear powers scrambled for an edge, the Americans began to develop a top-secret project to hide nuclear weapons in the Arctic, where they could easily strike at the Soviets. They named it Project Iceworm, but Greenland's ice sheet proved more powerful than the Cold War. Yes, because, spoiler alert, glaciers move. They're not static. They actually move and flow. It's frozen ice. So by the 1950s, the Cold War had begun to gain steam as both the U.S. and the Soviet Union had nuclear weapons, but storing nuclear missiles in the United States came with significant risks, as those locations could be attacked. So, at the end of the decade, the U.S. Army came up with a plan to build a secret nuclear missile facility in Greenland. A 1951 agreement between the U.S. and Denmark allowed the Americans to build air bases in Greenland, an autonomous Danish territory, but the Americans wanted to go further. The U.S. Army wanted to build an underground nuclear facility where missiles could be stored. The ambitious secret project, dubbed Project Iceworm, called for 52,000 square miles of tunnels under the ice, around 3 times the size of Denmark. Ironically. Trenches positioned 4 miles apart would hold 600 mobile missiles, which could be moved around the facility, and 11,000 soldiers would live beneath the ice, ready to strike when needed. According to a 1960 top-secret document from the U.S. Army Engineer Studies Center, Greenland was the perfect site for nuclear weapons. It was just 3,000 miles from Moscow, putting missiles in easy striking distance of U.S. targets. The missiles of Project Iceworm would be underground and easily moved to avoid detection, and the site guaranteed second strike capabilities if the Soviet Union fired nukes at the U.S. first. The missile force is hidden and elusive, the report recorded by the Atomic Heritage Foundation stated. It's deployed into an extensive cut-and-cover tunnel network in which men and missiles are protected from weather and, to a degree, from enemy attack. The deployment is invulnerable to all but massive attacks, and even then, most of the force can be launched. Concealment and variability of the deployment pattern are exploited to prevent the enemy from targeting the critical elements of the force. May the force be with you. According to the Atomic Heritage Foundation, the U.S. floated the idea of the facility to Denmark in 1958. When the Danish were non-committal in their response, the Americans decided to move forward with Project Iceworm. So they didn't say yes, but they didn't say no. Wink, wink, let's go. But Project Iceworm only worked if no one suspected the hidden ballistic missile, so the Army invented a cover story. And this is where Camp Century comes into play. Camp Century, the nuclear city under the ice. In 1958, construction began at Camp Century, a scientific research site run by the Americans, but the scientific site was a cover for the sprawling underground nuclear facility built under Project Iceworm. Building Camp Century posed challenges from the beginning. First, engineers had to build a road through the ice. Then they had to transport thousands of tons of supplies via bobsleds, which could only move at 2 miles per hour. That meant that the trip from Tool Air Base took 70 hours. Next, engineers had to dig trenches into the snow and the ice, cover them with a roof of steel arches, and top them anew with snow. From there, they created a network of underground buildings. The longest trench became known as Main Street, and it was 1,000 feet long. Eventually, the engineers built 26 tunnels, which stretched across 2 miles and led to dorms, a cafeteria, a hospital, and a rec hall. Eventually, the nuclear city would also have a hospital. I thought I said it had a hospital, a school, and a movie theater. Starting in 1960, a nuclear reactor powered Camp Century, and engineers plan to install 2 more reactors to keep things running. So now they got these nuclear reactors under the ice that's moving, just keep that in mind, and all this other stuff too. In order to maintain the cover story, the Army even released a documentary on the city under the ice to show they had nothing to hide. But they did have something to hide. Camp Century under Project Iceworm was built to hold enough medium-range ballistic missiles to destroy 80% of targets in the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe. It would have been a formidable nuclear site if it had ever been finished. So this is how it failed. Project Iceworm quickly ran into major problems. For one, the operation required 52,000 miles of tunnels, but only 2 miles were ever constructed, and the tunnels kept collapsing under the pressure of the Greenland ice sheet. What's more, the engineers planned to run the city on nuclear power, but frigid temperatures could crack metal, increasing the risks of accidents. Oopsie sauces. Beyond the challenges of building Camp Century were the challenges of operating it. The environment in Greenland was harsh on the best days. Temperatures could hit 70 below Fahrenheit, and winds whipped by at 120 miles per hour. Ultimately, Camp Century proved to be more trouble than it was worth. The facility's single nuclear reactor only functioned for 33 months, and the nuclear city, meant to house 11,000 people, never had more than 200 people. The military canceled Project Iceworm in 1963, though the public didn't learn the truth about Camp Century until the 90s, but the top secret military project would have long-lasting implications for the entire world, and this is why. All that waste that was left behind under the ice. After ending Project Iceworm, Camp Century continued to operate on a limited basis until 1966. With an annual snowfall of 4 feet, however, the abandoned nuclear city was increasingly buried under snow and ice. Its tunnels eventually collapsed and the U.S. Army moved out for good, but they left tons of hazardous waste behind. The Army thought that the snow would bury the radioactive coolant, diesel fuel, and wastewater. A 2016 study, however, showed that they were wrong. Camp Century waste stretches the size of 100 football fields, and Arctic warming will expose the waste by the end of the century. Let me read that again. So the waste, that includes radioactive coolant, diesel fuel, and wastewater, poopy water, the size of 100 football fields, So if you could take 10 football fields and then go 10 this way, that's a lot of football fields. That's a lot of shit. And Arctic warming will expose the waste by the end of the century. They thought it would never be exposed, climate scientist William Colgan told The Guardian back in 2016. Back then in the 60s, the term global warming had not even been coined, but the climate is changing, and the question now is whether what's down there is going to stay down there. Yeah, which is not going to stay down there. And then once that ice melts, all the gooey, ooey, nutty goodness of all that shit and all that, all that waste is probably going to go into the ocean. Which side? The Atlantic side, or maybe more closer to the North American side? I saw that the other day and I'm like, holy shit. Maybe this is why Trump wants Greenland, so he can cover it up. That's crazy talk right there. Hello. Nobody asked you to do that. So yeah. That's one little fun fact about Greenland. You probably didn't know that there's a ticking time bomb of waste just ready to go in the next 75 years. So who knows what's going to happen there. Yeah, Greenland kaiju coming. That's for sure. Yeah. Probably going to be some Viking with like 8 horns sticking out of his head. So we got a whole ton of propaganda watch for you today, including your favorite and mine, Jared Kushner. What?
Sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media publish these same things are true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Hey, it worked. So this is from the tweeters, from this guy Maine, from the Maine Wonk. New from New York Times, Jared Kushner outed as the Trump advisor mentioned in the intel report that was caught up in whistleblower complaint involving Tulsi Gabbard. Oh, Tulsi. Tulsi girl, come on. It was a discussion last year between 2 foreign nationals about Iran, not an unusual topic for American spies to study, but an intercept of that communication collected by a foreign spy service and given to the United States has now become a flashpoint within the intelligence community and between the administration and Congress. The reason is a single name that came up in the discussion: Jared Kushner, President Trump's son-in-law. The previously unreported mention of Mr. Kushner in the discussion came after members of Congress were briefed last week about a classified report filed by a whistleblower regarding the intercept. According to people familiar with the material, the whistleblower has accused Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, of limiting who could see the report and of blocking wider distribution among the nation's spy agencies, people familiar with the complaint said. That's very interesting indeed, right? Wouldn't you say? Why would the director of national intelligence limit who could see reports and block a wider distribution amongst the spy agencies? Not about regular ass people, but about amongst the spy agencies. That's some crazy shit. So this is in the New York Times. I'll have a link in the the link is going to be in our Substack, extrabulla.substack.com, for today's show. It's going to have this. It's in the archive, so you don't have to pay any money to read this shit. So intelligence dispute centers on Kushner reference in intercepted communication. This fucking robot looking, Mr. Data looking motherfucker. So this is all that we just read here. The whistleblower report was drafted last May while the Trump administration was deliberating about a strike on Iran. At the end of June, the military bombed Iranian nuclear sites on Trump's orders. Kushner has subsequently helped lead negotiations between the administration and Iran over Iran's nuclear and ballistic missile programs and its sponsorship of terrorism across the Middle East. He's also has business interests in the Middle East and in other parts of the world. Of course he does. A lot of people are saying that, are theorizing that it's Kushner that's actually pulling Trump strings. The episode has led to clashes over how to interpret the mention of Kushner in the discussion of whether Gabbard was improperly seeking to keep the intelligence from being distributed within the intelligence community. Kushner's name was redacted in the original report from the National Security Agency, but people reading it, including the whistleblower, were able to determine that their reference was to him. The names of Americans, particularly senior U.S. officials, are usually redacted from accounts of intelligence intercepts, a process called masking. The foreign nationals were discussing Mr. Kushner, but some officials who have read the underlying intelligence or been briefed on its contents downplayed the significance of the references to him. The foreign nationals, they said, were commenting on Kushner's influence with the Trump administration at a time last year when Kushner's role in Middle East peace talks was less public than it is now. The foreign officials were recorded saying that he was the person to speak to in order to influence the talks. The intercept also included what officials described as gossip or speculation about Kushner that was not supported by other intelligence. Some senior officials said the information was demonstrably false. While the whistleblower believed that information should be circulated, the NSA's general counsel, Gabbard, and the intelligence community's inspectors general disagreed. Officials declined to describe the gossip, saying that revealing it would expose the source of the information. Well, yeah, I guess they don't want that, right? The complaint, the investigation of the complaint, and the underlying intelligence all remain classified, officials said. The people interviewed for this story spoke on the condition that their names not be disclosed because of that secrecy. New York Times spoke to people in both major political parties as well as people with different opinions of the controversy over the whistleblower report. The whistleblower report was based on a telephone intercept provided to the NSA from a foreign intelligence service. Intercepts are notoriously difficult to interpret. Typically, intelligence analysts look to verify them with other forms of intelligence, like information from a human spy or surreptitiously obtained documents. Surreptitiously. That almost sounds delicious. With the questions around the intelligence, Gabbard moved to restrict access to the report. According to officials, Gabbard's aides have vigorously defended her handling of the complaint in numerous social media posts over the last week, since the Wall Street Journal first reported the existence of the whistleblower complaint. Because the intelligence report mentioned Kushner, Gabbard provided the information to Susie Wiles, the White House chief of staff, according to people briefed on the events. The whistleblower, an intelligence official whose identity has not been publicly disclosed, said Gabbard's actions improperly limited who could see the report. Some people who have reviewed the complaint have questioned whether she was trying to protect an ally of Mr. Trump from scrutiny. Uh-oh. Wampus, wampus, wampus. Some officials who either read or were briefed on the intelligence report said that had Gabbard not moved to restrict access to the report, it would have been quickly forgotten as one of many that recount foreign officials trying to figure out who has influence with Trump. The old Streisand effect. If she hadn't done anything, nobody would have paid any attention. But there she goes. Yeah, and there's more to this, but I often hear people still talking well about Tulsi, and like I'm more and more convinced that she may not have been an op, but she was easily coerced into doing what she's doing now and becoming a willing participant in the nonsense that's going on in our government too. So liar, liar, pants on. I think I did summon Wumpus Juice. Part of this complete breakfast. So Pam Bondi was getting grilled in front of Congress. She's not very good at that, by the way. When you invoke the stock market as some sort of like deflection, you're not doing very well. So Attorney General Pam Bondi accused of lying under oath in Epstein hearing. There she is. Hold on. Here's another lie. Here's another lie. Wait for it. That's what that looks like she was doing at the point. Hold on. I got another lie here somewhere. Stuck to this candy in my pocket. A House Democrat accused Attorney General Pam Bondi of lying under oath about Trump's past ties to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Weekend at Epstein's, escalating tensions as the administration attempts to close the chapter on the long-running investigation. Bondi's nearly 5-hour testimony before the House Judiciary Committee descended into repeated clashes with Democrats, including ranking member Jamie Raskin. Republicans largely pressed her with supportive questions, like, how do you get your hair so bouncy? While Democrats focused on the Justice Department's handling of the newly released Epstein files and allegations of political retribution. Ted Lieu asked whether underage girls were present at any parties Trump attended with Epstein. Bondi replied that there is no evidence that Donald Trump has committed a crime, and then she started dancing. No, I'm kidding. Lieu accused her of lying under oath, citing sworn testimony alleging sexual assault, and arguing that the Department of Justice failed to investigate the claims. Bondi sharply rejected the accusation. How dare you, sir? The White House pointed to a Department of Justice statement warning that some released materials could include fake or falsely submitted images, documents, or videos, including content related to Trump. The statement described the claims as unfounded and false and suggested that credible allegations would have already been used politically against the president. Trump has denied wrongdoing. Well, people might use it against Trump if their hands weren't dirty either. Not saying, just saying. Trump has denied wrongdoing, and the Department of Justice has stated that no active investigations into other individuals are underway. So Raskin accused Bondi of ignoring survivors and overseeing what he called a massive Epstein cover-up. Bondi later apologized to survivors, describing Epstein as a monster and expressing regret for the abuse they endured. Thoughts and prayers. That's their usual MO there. Representative Pramila Jayapal asked survivors in attendance to raise their hands if if they had not been able to meet with the Justice Department. According to Jayapal, all present indicated they had yet to secure a meeting. Lawmakers also broadened the hearing to include concerns about what Democrats described as a weaponized justice system. Representative Jerry Nadler criticized the department's failure to indict New York Attorney General Letitia James and questioned how many individuals implicated in the Epstein files have been charged during Bondi's tenure. Representative Mary Gay Scanlon pressed Bondi on compliance with a presidential memo on countering domestic terrorism and organized political violence, which references Democratic donors and the radical left. Bondi said the department would follow the law, but declined to commit to providing a list of any entities under consideration for designation. This comes days after the U.S. Justice Department released over 3 million pages of documents. We told you about that. Thousands of videos and images related to the Epstein case, the largest public release to date. Under the Epstein Files Transparency Act, or EFTA, which sounds effed up. While no new indictments are expected, the files includes extensive references to Trump, complicating the optics around Maxwell's request for clemency. Among the newly disclosed documents is an FBI complaint from a woman identified as Jane Doe who accused Trump of raping her in 1994 when she was 13 years old. These allegations remain unverified, but their inclusion in the file has reignited calls for further investigation. Flight logs released as part of the document dump show that Trump flew on Epstein's private jet at least 8 times between 1993 and 96, more than previously known. Internal emails from 2011 reveal Epstein and accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell addressing how to respond to a victim's allegation that she had been working underage at Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort. Maxwell reminded Epstein, "You said not to involve Donald." Separate communications from 2018 show Epstein mocking Trump in private emails, using derogatory nicknames, and questioning his wealth, or as Trump likes to call it, a Thursday. Meanwhile, said, meanwhile, we talk about ICE in Chicago. So body camera footage and text show Department of DHS, Department of Homeland Security. I almost said Human Security. Yeah, that's not true. Lied about shooting of Miramar Martinez in Chicago. So newly released evidence shows that the Department of Homeland Security lied about the shooting of yet another U.S. citizen. In October, a Border Patrol agent shot Miramar Martinez, a 30-year-old school assistant, 5 times while she was in her vehicle in the Brighton Park neighborhood of Chicago. She had been tailing agents while warning the neighborhood that La Migra was coming. Immediately after the shooting, DHS leapt to defend the agent who shot Martinez, Charles Exum. The agency claimed in an incident report that Martinez was blocking agents and had rammed them with her car. Does that sound familiar? The agency described her as a domestic terrorist. Martinez, who survived the shooting, was charged with assaulting officers and pleading not guilty. The government's case was fatally undermined in November when it was revealed during a hearing that Exum had bragged to friends about injuring Martinez over text message. Quote, I fired 5 rounds and she had 7 holes. Put that in your book, boys, quote, he said. Martinez's lawyer also said body camera footage kept under seal by a federal protective order showed a different series of events from what the agency had portrayed. In November, federal prosecutors dropped the case against Martinez without explanation. Nothing to see here, or not that there was. But even afterwards, federal officials have continued to label her as a terrorist. Of course they have. This is before there's any investigation done, said her attorney, Chris Parente, who has argued that the public should be able to view the evidence for itself. On Wednesday, the U.S. Attorney's Office in Chicago released body camera footage from 2 other agents involved in the incident, Adam J. Perkins and Lorenzo Cordero, as well as dozens of Exum's other emails and text messages from the incident's aftermath. Parente, who presented the evidence in a press conference on Wednesday alongside Martinez and her other lawyers, said that with the release, people can actually see the real evidence as opposed to the false claims by our government. He said the release, after several months of keeping the footage buried, was a misguided attempt to take the sting out of just how damaging it is for the government. So Block Club Chicago, which reviewed the body cam footage, explained that it counters the incident report's narrative that Martinez had been the aggressor. Rather, it shows that she was attempting to drive away, and that agents chose to ram her. It shows Cordero and Perkins with weapons drawn and pointing out the rear passenger window about 1 minute before the collision and shooting of Martinez. The phrase, "It's time to get aggressive," and "We're going to make contact, we're boxed in," can be heard by one of the 3 agents before Exum is seen yanking his steering wheel to the left and hitting Martinez's car. After the collision, Exum is seen getting out of the car and firing 5 shots within 2 seconds. The body camera footage verifies claims by Martinez's attorneys, who said that after drawing their weapons, one of the agents could be heard saying, of course, something like, "Do something, bitch." It also provides support to attorneys' claims about text messages sent by agents after the shooting. Exum is seen bragging about the shooting, calling it a great new scenario to add to our training. Yikes. Other agents sent messages praising him. One called him a legend among agents. Another said, "Good job, brother. Glad you're unharmed." A third said, "Beers on me." And boots in mouths on me as well. Exum replied with the phrase, "Fuck around and find out," which has been an oft-used slogan within the Trump administration to justify killings by law enforcement and the military. Yes, like those people fucking around in the Caribbean who are probably just fisher people and getting blowed up. Exum also discussed the big-time support he was getting from top Trump administration officials. Do tell. He said everyone had been supportive, including then Border Patrol Commander-at-Large Gregory Bovino, the yard gnome, Border Patrol Chief Mike Banks, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, and even El Jefe himself, likely referring to Trumpy. Less than 4 hours after the shooting, Exum received an email from Bovino, who offered to extend his retirement age beyond 57 and praised his excellent service to Chicago. On Wednesday, the same day the new evidence was released, a Customs and Border Protection spokesperson told the Chicago Sun-Times that Exum has now been placed on administrative leave. Oh, what? Administrative leave. I wonder if it's paid. They did not clarify how long the leave would last or when it began. Parenti said the smearing of Martinez as a terrorist fits a pattern that the Trump administration has since used to justify other shootings by agents. We live in a strange time right now where we cannot trust our federal government, he said. Right now? It's been the case for a while. Within an hour of the actual incident, DHS branded Martinez a domestic terrorist. The same thing they did to Renee Good, the same thing they did to Alex Peretti, referring to 2 other U.S. citizens shot and killed last month by agents in Minneapolis. Martinez has announced plans to sue the federal government and Exum for tens of millions of dollars, citing physical injuries to her right leg, right forearm, and chest, reputational damage, and emotional harm. During a hearing earlier this month on Capitol Hill about the violent use of force by DHS agents, she described the shooting as an attempted execution. I looked down and noticed blood gushing out of my arms and legs, and I realized I'd been shot multiple times, she said. What happened to me in a matter of seconds on October 4th will unfortunately be with me for a lifetime. So yeah, so more and more of these fuckers are getting called out, and more of this evidence is coming out that, people are driving away. They're not driving into you, trying to make themselves, feel, look and seem like victims. But, the public is turning on them fairly quickly too. And I'm not talking about hardcore Republicans who are just, love to suck that cop boot, but I'm talking about just regular ass people that has to deal with this kind of shit. And they're just seeing regular ass people just getting shot and killed, even though that shit's been going on the regular for some time. Of course, these psychopaths in government are trying to give the DHS even more power, as Republicans approved dystopian voter suppression bill that would force states to give info to the DHS. Now, you remember Trump saying, like, we'll pull back out of Minnesota, or no, was it? Or maybe it was, I think it was Kristi Noem who said, well, as long as you give us your voter rolls or something like that, it was straight up extortion for data. Doing President Donald Trump's bidding, the Republican-controlled U.S. House on Wednesday approved legislation that would potentially prevent millions of Americans from participating in federal elections, by instituting draconian voter ID requirements, mandating documentary proof of citizenship to register to vote, and requiring states to share voter information with the Department of Homeland Security. The White House backed legislation, an updated version of the so-called SAVE Act that the House approved back in 2024, passed with the support of every Republican who took part in the vote and one Democrat, Representative Henry Cuellar of Texas, notably the recipient of a pardon from the president. Ain't that funny how that works out? A little pay for play. Willie. Morning Extra is back by popular demand. Sorry I'm late. Writing a book which might never be published. Brianna Troy Gray for President 2028. $10. Thanks, Willie. You are awesome sauce, my friend. I appreciate you as always. I hope you're having a great morning. Or I guess afternoon in your case. Election experts and watchdog groups said the bill represents a massive assault on the rights to vote, with many of its provisions directly in line with what Trump has demanded ahead of the 2026 midterm elections, which he knows the Republicans are going to get creamed in. That's not an endorsement of the Democratic Party. That's just stating a fact. Congressional Republicans are attempting to commandeer the midterm election cycle and increase voting margins in President Trump's favor by putting a finger on the scale of our elections and pushing nonsensical anti-democratic laws to stop voters from casting a ballot, said Public Citizen co-president Lisa Gilbert. This overreaching un-American bill lacks tax on unnecessary bureaucratic hurdles to vote, all of which would harm voters across the political spectrum. The bill is likely dead on arrival in the narrowly divided Senate, with every Democrat and at least one Republican, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, expected to oppose it. But its passage through the House with unanimous support from the Republican caucus, whose members claim to be driven by a desire to prevent non-citizens from voting, which is already unlawful, and combat voter fraud, which is virtually non-existent, alarmed rights advocates. Not election fraud, voter fraud. Yes, voter fraud is very well. Election fraud, quite common, actually. This obvious attack on our voting rights is based on completely unfounded claims, said Allison Gill, Director of Nominations and Democracy at the National Women's Law Center. The lawmakers supporting this measure clearly aim to suppress the votes of women, people of color, and LGBTQ plus people in order to rig elections and remain in power. Which is yes, that's true. But remember, Democrats are also the main ones who try to keep third parties off the ballots, especially the left-leaning third parties in particular. They don't like the competition. It's already illegal for non-citizens to vote in federal elections, which means that the SAVE Act 2.0 creates a convoluted and dystopian solution to a problem that does not actually exist, Gill added. Americans strongly opposed legislation when Congress considered this issue last year, and yet the congressional Republicans are trying to double down on this deceptive policy. Analysts estimate that more than 21 million Americans lack ready access to the documents the Republican legislation would require people to furnish in order to register to vote, such as a passport and a birth certificate. The Brennan Center for Justice notes that the measure would disenfranchise Americans of all ages and races, but younger voters and voters of color would suffer disproportionately. Likewise, millions of women whose married names aren't on their birth certificates or passports would face extra steps just to make their voices heard. In addition to strict documentary requirements for registration and voting, the bill would force states to conduct frequent purges of their voter rolls and share information with the Department of Homeland Security in a purported effort to verify voters' citizenship, changes that could disenfranchise many eligible voters. The legislation would also establish criminal penalties for election workers who register voters without the required documentary proof of citizenship. Bruce Spiva, Senior Vice President at Campaign Legal Center, noted that the GOP's renewed voter suppression push comes as the FBI is seizing ballots from the 2020 election. President Trump is calling for our elections to be nationalized, and the U.S. Department of Justice is suing more than 20 states to get access to voters' private data. Isn't that really what it's all about? Getting that private data. We want that data. Come on now, give me that data. I want it. I have it. Right? Okay. This is not a coincidence, said Spiva. The forces that are driving the Trump administration's anti-voter agenda are also pressuring Congress to pass legislation that would silence millions of Americans by making it harder to participate in our elections. In an op-ed for the New York Times on Thursday, the Brennan Center's Sean Morales Doyle warned that the campaign to rig our elections is well underway. It will be incumbent on all of us, election officials, advocates, state law enforcement, and voters, to see the administration's efforts for what they are and to fight back, wrote Morales Doyle. Yes. Those faces, I swear to God, that's just yikes. And I always tell people too that anytime you need hey, what's up, Steve? Good to see you. Whether you want people to have identification to vote or not, that's one argument. But the point is, if you do want them to have identification to vote, that means these people need to pay for identification, right? If you're providing free voter ID, that's fine. But if you're not, you're charging a poll tax. You're basically charging people to vote. Like, if you want to vote, you got to pay this money to do that. And a lot of people, some of these people will say, well, yeah, in order to vote, you got to buy gas to put in your car. You always got to pay to vote. It's like, yeah, but you're not paying the government with that. You're paying the gas station to put gas in your car so you can go to the voting place. I never understood why that was never taken into consideration, why people aren't up in arms about that being a poll tax. It's a straight up poll tax. Maybe not directly, but it's definitely, you have to pay to play in order to vote, and that's no bueno. All right, more stuff. Let's talk about anti-Zionism. Where's the technical difficulties? Oh yeah, there. Sorry about that. Let's talk about a member of Trump's Religious Liberty Commission removed after questioning claim that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitic. So it's from Dave DeCamp over there at antiwar.com. Be sure you're checking those guys out. News.antiwar.com. They do good news aggregation. They have their own journalism as well. Check them out. And, if you can support them financially, I'm sure they appreciate that too. So a member of the Trump administration's Commission on Religious Liberty has been removed after a hearing turned contentious over her objection to the idea that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. Interesting. Carrie Prejean Baller, shot caller, a Catholic conservative activist and model, took issue with the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance's definition of anti-Semitism, which has been embraced by the Trump administration's Department of Justice and conflates criticism of the modern state of Israel with anti-Semitism. Undoubtedly, anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, Rabbi Ari Berman, president of Yeshiva University in New York, told Baller during one exchange. Baller then pointed to her Catholic faith, which does not affirm the idea that the Jewish people have a divine right to historic Palestine. Uh-oh. Gloves off. I'm a Catholic, and Catholics do not embrace Zionism. Just so you know. So are all Catholics anti-Semites, she said. During the hearing, Baller also read testimony from Rabbi Yaakov Shapiro. The girl is hard to get, an anti-Zionist Jew, and asked if his statement was anti-Semitic. In a post on the tweeters, Baller said she recommended Shapiro. I guess it's supposed to be Shapiro. Shapiro doesn't sound right. And several other Jewish Americans for the panel, but they were denied. After facing backlash for her questioning, Baller vowed to continue speaking out. I will never bend the knee to the state of Israel ever, she said. I am more determined than ever to speak plainly about political Zionism and the lies we've been sold to justify endless war, dead children, and blank checks. Booyah! Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, another commission member who interrupted Baller's questioning during the hearing, said on Wednesday that Baller was being removed. No member of the commission has the right to hijack a hearing for their own personal and political agenda on any issue. This is clearly, without question, what happened Monday in our hearing on anti-Semitism in America. This was my decision, he said. Yeah. So, they really don't want you talking bad about Zionists. That's the same thing as making fun of Jews. Like, no, no, not really, not actually at all. As a matter of fact, yeah. Israeli fuckery in Canada, you asked? for? Well, you got it. Toyota. Israeli lawfare group moves to shut down Canadian outlet The Maple. So on February 11th, that would be Wednesday, Canadian outlet The Maple reported that Israeli lawfare organization Shirat Hadin, SH, is attempting to pressure payment processors and Canadian authorities to shut it down over its journalism. The Reader-funded publication said the campaign followed SH's public effort to cut off its funding and trigger a criminal investigation into its reporting. According to The Maple, SH sent legal notices to Stripe, Apple Pay, and major credit card networks, demanding they terminate services, stating in a January 25th post that it had issued urgent legal notices demanding they cut off services to the outlet. Israeli media reported that SH also wrote to the Toronto police chief, the Ontario Provincial Police Commissioner, and Ontario's Attorney General, calling for a criminal investigation into The Maple's journalism and urging authorities to shut down the site. In a February 4th report by the Canadian Jewish News, SH founder Nitzana Darshan-Leitner said legal campaigns against the outlet could serve as an alert, as a red flag for others. A cautionary tale, if you will. She made clear that the objective extends beyond The Maple itself, stating that even opening an investigation brings attention to the website owners, and this is what we, SH, want. SH described its mission as bankrupting terrorism one lawsuit at a time and weaponizes the threat of state investigation as a warning to others, journalists and researchers who might pursue similar reporting unfavorable to Israel. Stop talking bad about us. We'll take you to court, even though the shit you're saying is true. Delicious. The lawfare firm's offensives have included litigation against UNRWA, a $1 billion lawsuit against Al Jazeera in 2025, and legal challenges targeting supporters of the boycott, divestment, sanctions movement, also known as BDS. The Maple also cited SH's past statements about cooperation with Mossad. In a 2024 video clip, Darshan-Leitner said, "We were approached by the Israeli Mossad and they said, let's collaborate. They will give us evidence and we'll expand our activity." A 2017 report by Reuters titled "Fighting Israel's Foes in U.S. Courts, Lawyer Had Help from Mossad," states that Darshan-Leitner received regular briefings from the Mossad after a consultation at the Israeli intelligence agency's headquarters. Well, how about that? The pressure campaign follows the Maple's publication of 2 databases documenting Canadians who served in the Israeli military, with the outlet stating that the information was drawn entirely from public sources and that the projects do not dox anyone or encourage harassment. The Maple stated it has not been contacted by payment processors or law enforcement and cited an RCMP, that's a Royal Canadian Mounted Police, review in March that found the database non-criminal, adding that it will continue its reporting despite the campaign. The campaign to shut down the Maple comes against the backdrop of a broader Israeli push to use lawfare paired with media manipulation and digital suppression to control global narratives around its genocidal actions in Gaza and its wider record of aggression in West Asia and beyond. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu previously called this the 8th front, referring to it as a digital campaign involving mass content flagging, AI-driven moderation tools, paid influencers, and multi-million-dollar advertising drives aimed at shaping online narratives to suit the Israeli perspective. A media analysis report titled "Framing Gaza" found overwhelming headline dominance of the word Israel over Palestine across major Western outlets, showing a clear structural imbalance in reporting. Meanwhile, an investigation by The Intercept reported that YouTube removed more than 700 videos documenting Israeli war crimes and human rights violations after U.S. sanctions targeted Palestinian rights groups working with the International Criminal Court. Dun, 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 dun. So, yeah, like they're trying to shut down any sort of anti-Israel and twisting it into anti-Semitism, right? Because it's worked so well in the past, but now it's not working anymore. Clearly, it's not working anymore. So now they're trying different. Now they're trying to get you in court. So what is all this Epstein business? Has there been stuff? Has this had any worldwide ramifications? I know we've talked about people in the UK, here at home, but what ramifications does it have around the world? So interesting. From the New York Times, but this is from Archive today, because screw their paywall. Epstein revelations stir chaos from Scandinavia to South Asia. A French politician famed as a cultural icon of the 1980s and 90s, a Norwegian diplomat who played a role in the secret talks that yielded the Oslo Accords between Israel and the Palestinians, a well-connected Slovak former minister who served as president of the UN General Assembly. 3 prominent officials tripped up by their associations with Jeffrey Epstein, and they are far from the only ones. Epstein, the financier and convicted sex offender, collected friends and associates in an astonishing array of places. Now several of them are being brought down by the unsavory details of their relationships. Some after Mr. Epstein was convicted in 2008. Those are the ones when they knew he was shit, and yet they still dealt with him. Which were revealed in nearly 3 million pages of that document dump we told you by the Justice Department. Jack Lang, who once served as France's culture minister, announced on Saturday he would resign as head of the Arab World Institute, a prestigious cultural institution in Paris, after French authorities said they were investigating reports that he and his family had financial links to Epstein. Mona Jewel. Is that the same? The Jewel? Is that the people who do like the vapes? Mona Jewel, who had been Norway's ambassador to Jordan and Iraq, quit after disclosures of financial dealings between her and her husband and Epstein. Miroslav Lajkak? What? No, that's not what that says. Lajkak. It sounds like somebody in Maine saying something's got a big dick. The National Security Advisor to Slovakia's Prime Minister, Robert Fico, stepped down following the release of emails between him and Epstein in which the two men appeared to banter about young women. Clearly, he had a very extensive system. President Emmanuel Macron of France said this week, referring to Epstein's vast network of contacts, "This also fuels a lot of conspiracy theories and everything else." Oh, does it? You think? The friendship between Epstein and Peter Mandelson, a former British ambassador to Washington, has kicked up such a firestorm that it initially threatened to sink Britain's Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, who appointed him. Prominent figures have been name-checked in several other countries, costing them their jobs, their reputations, and even the threat of legal charges. As with the leaking of offshore bank account holders in the Panama Papers affair, the case of Epstein has laid bare privileged political and social circles from Scandinavia to South Asia. Hey, Ghost Art, what's going on? Good to see you, bud. So many prominent names have surfaced, in fact, that major world figures have felt pressure to disavow links to him, you think? After social media reports that Epstein met the Dalai Lama, a statement issued on Sunday on behalf of the exiled Tibetan spiritual leader said he had never met Epstein nor authorized anyone to meet him. India's foreign ministry dismissed an email from Epstein in which he appeared to take credit for the integrating approach of Prime Minister Narendra Modi during a landmark state visit to Israel in 2017. Epstein's claims, the statement said, were little more than trashy ruminations by a convicted criminal which deserved to be dismissed with the utmost contempt. But the opposition Congress party seized on the reference to suggest that Mr. Modi was vulnerable to manipulation by foreign monsters. See Donald Trump. A senior party official, Casey Venugopal, urged the prime minister on social media to personally come clean on these disturbing disclosures. Political score settling has played a part in the reaction in other countries. In Israel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu played up disclosure of emails between Epstein and Ehud Barak, a former prime minister who has been a vocal critic of Bibi's. Epstein's unusual close relationship with Ehud Barak doesn't suggest Epstein worked for Israel. It proves the opposite, Bibi said after snacking on some adrenochrome. Stuck on his election loss from over 2 decades ago, Barak has for years obsessively attempted to undermine Israeli democracy. Speaking in December, Mr. Barak confirmed he attended lunches and dinners at Epstein's Manhattan townhouse, but said he did not witness or take part in any sexual abuse. I now deeply regret having any association with him. They all have the same voice. Sorry. They all sound like somebody from, like, Crown Heights. In Slovakia, Prime Minister Fico portrayed the furor over Lajkak as an attack on him, saying his advisor's resignation would deprive the country of an incredible source of experience in diplomacy. Mr. Lajkak told the Slovak press agency, I was never offered sexual services. I never participated in any. I never witnessed any. I didn't do none of that shit. I didn't do nothing. It wasn't my fault. Yeah, cue the Bruce brothers when he's talking to Carrie Fisher. It wasn't my fault. Commentators in Slovakia said those denials stretched credulity, given the locker room tone of the emails between him and Epstein. Excuse me. In one, Mr. Lajkak told him that when it came to young women, sharing is caring. That's in quotes. There was no response to a text message seeking comment sent to a number that belonged to Mr. Lajkak. Satan Yahoo. It is. In Norway, the police have begun investigating Miss Jewel and her husband, Terje Rod Larsen Terje, after media reports that the couple had been left $10 million in Epstein's will. Norway's foreign minister, Epson Barth, that looks like Epson Bath. Epson Barth Eid said Miss Jewel had shown a serious failure of judgment. I think it wasn't the failure of judgment of doing the thing. It was the failure of judgment and not getting caught. And when they got caught, it was like, oops. Her lawyer said in a statement that she does not recognize the accusations made against her. I don't recognize them. They look foreign to me. Few countries have been as shadowed by the disclosures as Norway. A former Prime Minister, Thorbjørn Jagland, the Crown Princess Mette-Marit, and Borg Brende. Stop it! It's not even Swedish. An ex-foreign minister who now runs the World Economic Forum. Oh, that's convenient. Are all under scrutiny for their links. Norway's parliament on Tuesday set up an independent commission to investigate those ties. This ain't real. That's not a real name. Carry our ass. Sorry, I need a... That says carry our ass. I'm sorry. Who served as Norway's ambassador to Israel, Afghanistan, and the U.S. said the disclosures had left diplomats in sadness and anxiety. He said he expected Miss Jewel and her husband to face a reckoning in the courts. No mercy in Norway on corruption, and Norwegians as higher positions, such as politicians and ambassadors, are no exception, Mr. Ass said. Ass. You wouldn't be saying it like that, ass. In France, Jack Lang's case will be a conspicuous test of the price of having dealt with Epstein In a prolific career, Laine is credited with creating popular cultural events and architectural landmarks. Now 86 and retired from politics, he has remained a respected figure in France through the Arab World Institute, which he has led since 2013, which promotes Arab culture and values. Laine is more a figure of folklore than someone who carries political weight, said Christine Ockrent, a Paris-based broadcaster. Still, she said he represents French culture, and Epstein probably thought he would get access to that through him. Mr. Laine's name came up more than 600 times in the documents, with emails chronicling lunches, dinners, and business deals dating back to 2012, when Mr. Laine said he and Epstein were introduced by a mutual friend, the filmmaker Woody Allen. Oh, Jesus, I really didn't know who Epstein was. I had my own problems with young people, and now I have to, oh boy. Mr. Epstein jointly owned an offshore fund with Laine's daughter, Caroline, that Laine said Epstein set up to support up-and-coming artists. Oh, boy. According to a French investigative website, Mediapart, Mr. Epstein also left Caroline, a film producer, $5 million in his will, according to Mediapart. France's National Financial Prosecutor's Office said it had opened a preliminary investigation of Laine and his daughter for laundering of tax fraud proceeds, posting on social media. A defiant Laine said the accusations against me are unfounded, and I will prove this despite the noise and fury of the media and digital courts. A lot of people have said, well, what are the Epstein files? What does it really prove? What's it like? There are some real world consequences to these things, right? If anything, it's getting these people to ask more questions that certainly the Epstein files themselves do not provide answers to, or that the Department of Justice won't provide answers to, interestingly enough. Speaking of which, members of Congress demand Department of Justice stop tracking lawmakers' Epstein file searches. A lot of Epstein stuff today. I don't normally do this much Epstein stuff, but it's chock full. So it's from NBC News, so take it as you will. Members of Congress sharply criticized the Justice Department over allegations that it was tracking what lawmakers were searching for as they viewed unredacted versions of the Jeffrey Epstein files. A Reuters photo showed Bondi at a congressional hearing Wednesday holding a document labeled Jayapal Pramila Search History. The document listed Epstein files that the Democratic representative from Washington confirmed she searched. The DOJ began allowing lawmakers this week to view unredacted Epstein files. The review process could take place in person at the Justice Department on DOJ computers. In a letter, I believe Massey and Rokana both looked at these letters too, unredacted, allegedly. In a letter from the Justice Department to lawmakers obtained by NBC News, it said that it will keep a log of the dates and times of all members' reviews. Reached for comment, a Justice Department spokesperson said the DOJ has extended Congress the opportunity to review unredacted documents in the Epstein files. As a part of that review, DOJ logs all searches made on its systems to protect against the release of victim information. You're not tracking them by chance, are you? While you're protecting the release of victim information. The backlash from lawmakers adds to growing outrage over the department's handling of its Epstein records. At Wednesday's oversight hearing with the House Judiciary Committee, Bondi faced criticism from Democratic lawmakers and 2 Republicans who accused the department of mishandling survivors' information, improperly redacting files that name prominent individuals, among other concerns. Jayapal said in a post on the tweeters that it was totally inappropriate and against the separations of powers for the Department of Justice to surveil us as we search the Epstein files. Bondi showed up today with a burned book that held a printed search history of exactly what emails I searched. Jayapal continued, referring to a stack of documents that Bondi read off of during the hearing. That is outrageous, and I intend to pursue this and stop this spying on members. Jayapal told NBC News that she spoke to House Speaker Mike Johnson, a Republican out of Louisiana, and confirmed that that was my search history that she had in the binder, that there's a photograph of it that matched what I searched, and it was unacceptable. She declined to elaborate on what she and Johnson discussed. Jayapal told reporters Wednesday that we're going to demand an end to that. In an NPR interview published Thursday morning, Jayapal said that after speaking with Johnson, I do think that there is bipartisan agreement. Whenever that happens, you know fuckery's afoot. That we should be able to review those files without the Department of Justice surveilling us. Johnson said Thursday that he didn't think it was appropriate for anyone to track lawmaker searches. My understanding is that there are computers set up where the DOJ was allowing access to the files, and I think members should obviously have the right to peruse those at their own speed and with their own discretion, he told reporters on Capitol Hill. And I don't think it's appropriate for anyone to be tracking that, so I will echo that to anybody involved with the DOJ, and I'm sure it was an oversight. That's my guess. Somebody didn't get their talking points correct. Representative Jamie Raskin, the top Democrat on the House Judiciary Committee, accused Bondi and her team of spying on members of Congress, conducting oversight in yet another blatant attempt to intrude into Congress's oversight processes. In a statement on Wednesday, Raskin demanded that the Justice Department immediately cease tracking any member searches, adding that he would ask the Justice Department's Inspector General to open an inquiry into this outrageous abuse of power. Representative Nancy Mace of South Carolina, one of the most outspoken Republicans on the Epstein files, also alleged in a post on the tweeters that the DOJ is tracking the Epstein documents members of Congress search for, open, and review. In an NPR interview published Thursday morning, Mace described the process of reviewing unredacted documents at the Justice Department. There is someone or two people from the DOJ monitoring you as you sit on those computers, May said. There is a tech person who logs you into the computer. They log you into the computer because they're giving you your own identification. They are tracking all of the documents that members of Congress open, and they're tracking everything that you do in that room. Representative Jared Moskowitz, Democrat out of Florida, said it was suspicious that every member had to log on to the DOJ's computer using their own specific login information. He added it was inappropriate that DOJ officials followed our search history. We should have been informed of that, he told reporters. If that was going to be the case, to do it secretly is problematic. Yeah, so my question is, with all this monitoring, are they going to use that information against those people later on in elections, come election time too? See, they were looking into this stuff. They're like, they're trying to hurt Trump or some ridiculousness. I don't think that anything's going to come out of it. I think this all is just part of the theater. Is it a distraction? Sure. But it is public officials. We have to keep an eye on what they're doing. So at least you know what's going down in the city there. We could probably skip that. Reset. So here, I found this to be very fishy, even though I don't really buy these polls anymore. I don't really think much of them. But Gallup will no longer measure presidential approval after 88 years. Gallup will no longer track presidential approval ratings after more than 8 decades doing so, the public opinion polling agency confirmed to The Hill on Wednesday. The company said starting this year, it would stop publishing approval and favorability ratings of individual political figures, saying in a statement, quote, "It reflects an evolution on how Gallup focuses its public research and thought leadership. Our commitment is to long-term, methodically sound research on issues and conditions that shape people's lives," a word salad said. That work will continue through the Gallup Poll Social Series, the Gallup Quarterly Business Review, the World Poll, and our portfolio of U.S. and global research. The news was first reported by the Washington Post. The Gallup presidential approval rating has for decades been among the top barometers cited by media outlets measuring public opinion of the president's performance. Trump has seen his rating by the agency slip in recent months, peaking at 47% last February and dipping to less than 37% in the last poll taken in December. This change is part of a broader ongoing effort to align all of Gallup's public work with its mission. A spokesperson for Gallup said, "We look forward to continuing to offer independent research that adheres to the highest standards of social science." Dumb shit. Trump's Gallup approval rating as of last December was among the lowest the organization. Hello. Yeah, you acting funky there? Wait, what happened? Okay. We look forward to continuing. I think this story I think they just updated it. When asked by The Hill if Gallup had received any feedback from the White House or anyone in the current administration before making the decision, the spokesperson said, "This is a strategic shift solely based on Gallup's research goals and priorities. Has nothing to do with anybody coming in and saying, hey, you better change it." So his was among the lowest the organization had found since it began taking the poll in the 30s. Former President Truman earned an average approval rating of 45% during his time in office from April 1945 to January 1953. Former President Biden earned an average approval rating of 42%. Average rating, right, from January 21st, 2021 to January 2025. Kennedy experienced some of the highest average ratings Gallup has ever recorded, 71% from 1961 to 63. Well, you know, apparently one person or more did not approve of him in November 1963. And former President Eisenhower topped out at an average of 61% from 1953 to 1961. So, you know, it's kind of, it sounds very familiar to when YouTube took away the dislike button. You can still like it, but you can't dislike it. Although you can get plugins that will still show you the dislikes if you're into that sort of thing. Finally, today we have James Lee video for you. Talking about the Super Bowl. If you watch the Super Bowl, or the Superb Owl, as some people call it. Of course, a lot of people watch it for the game. A lot of people watch it for the commercials, right? And one of the commercials was by Ring. I don't know if you've seen this or not. This is a little bit lengthy video from James. It's about 10 minutes, but I think it's totally worth it. Let's watch, please.
Every year, there's just one or two Super Bowl commercials that didn't hit the right way. Or maybe it did. Maybe they are just that brazen. And this year, the commercial that has everyone going, what the hell did I just watch? Amazon Ring cameras.
This is Milo. Pets are family. But every year, 10 million go missing. And the way we look for them hasn't changed in years. Until now. One post of a dog's photo in the Ring app starts outdoor cameras looking for a match. Search Party from Ring uses AI to help families find lost dogs. Since launch, more than a dog a day has been reunited with their family. Be a hero in your neighborhood with Search Party. Available to everyone for free right now. Join the neighborhood at ring.com.
I watched that last night, and my first gut reaction was like, something tells me this is not about the dogs. They certainly want us to think that it's something as innocent as reuniting you and your family with your dog. Amazon CEO says the Pet Finder AI tool on Ring doorbells helped bring home 99 dogs in 90 days. Now, hold on, wait a minute. Didn't they say that over 10 million dogs go missing a year? And this is going to do what? Find one dog maybe every single day. So 365 dogs a year, which is, you know, I'm not going to discount the dogs that are found, I'm sure those owners are very, very happy, but 365 out of 10 million, I feel like there's something more to this story than they're telling us, but let's find out. Ring introduced Search Party last year, an AI-powered pet search tool using video from local cameras. Since its launch, Ring has found 99 dogs in 90 days, Amazon CEO Andy Jassy wrote. Jassy also wrote that the feature, which was the focus of a Super Bowl ad, was one of the, quote, compelling uses of AI. Is it, though? Because, once again, my spidey senses are telling me that Andy Jassy does not care about your dog. This is from 2023. The FTC says Ring employees were legally surveilling customers and failed to stop hackers from taking control of users' cameras. Well, that's not ideal, is it? Because I think when we think of Ring cameras, we think of them as pointing outside into the yard, like the commercial showed. But according to industry data, 33% of users have also installed indoor cameras, meaning they point inside the house. And if you have a Ring camera that's positioned in such a way, I would say probably don't. It has been reported that Ring security cameras have given every employee, quote, full access to all customer videos for years, according to the FTC, and at least one employee viewed thousands of video recordings belonging to at least 81 unique female users.
You use Amazon's Doorbell, Ring, or Alexa. Listen up. Amazon has agreed to pay more than $30 million to settle complaints involving these two products. The FTC accused Amazon of allowing employees to access Ring customers' private videos, exposing them to hackers. According to the complaint, one Ring employee viewed thousands of video recordings that may have surveyed bedrooms and other intimate spaces in the homes of female customers. The FTC also accused Amazon of violating a child privacy law and deceiving parents by keeping kids' voice and location data recorded by Alexa. Amazon said it disagreed with the FTC's claims, but the settlements, quote, put these matters behind us.
Yes, they say they want to put these matters behind them, but I'm here to tell you that since that scandal, it has only become more apparent that Amazon has codified mass surveillance into the core of their operations. It was announced in 2024 that Anthropic and Palantir are partnering to bring Claude AI models to AWS, which is Amazon Web Services, for U.S. government intelligence and defense operations, which I'm sure is something that the American public is deeply yearning for, more Palantir in our lives. But in terms of the Ring camera service itself, the more disturbing partnership might be this, which is that Amazon Ring security cameras are, quote, moving deeper into law enforcement with Flock Safety and Axon deals. Quote, Flock Safety is teaming up with Amazon's Ring security to offer public and law enforcement a new way to share video footage that can assist in crime investigations. That's how it always starts. It's always about your safety. Speaking of which, what the hell is Flock Safety? Well, Flock Safety is a law enforcement technology company that operates what it calls a, quote, nationwide public-private safety network of surveillance cameras, drones, license plate readers, and other devices. It has contracts with over 5,000 communities, 4,500 law enforcement agencies, and 1,000 businesses nationwide. The company, based in Georgia, is valued at $7.5 billion and receives nearly $700 million in venture capital funding, according to its website. You're probably seeing it now, right? How the Ring camera infrastructure that people have freely chosen to install in and around their homes can be leveraged by these types of companies to create a mass surveillance state. And of course, they always tell us that it is about our safety. This is their website. They say they are shaping the future of safety together. To solve and eliminate crime, you need evidence. Protect your community, businesses, or schools 24/7 with coverage that never sleeps. Safety is something we create together. But how? And, oh, well, that's how. We're going to map the fuck out of you. We're going to track your every movement, regardless of whether or not you're committing a crime, and we're going to call it a public safety technology ecosystem. And if you speak out and say, I don't want this, I like safety, but I don't trust you guys, then guess what? You are deemed a terrorist by their CEO. Take a listen to Garrett Langley, the CEO of Flock.
And then unfortunately, there's terroristic organizations like DFlock, whose primary motivation is chaos. They are closer to Antifa than they are anything else. And that, I think, is unfortunate because we don't want chaos, or I don't want chaos. I like law and order. I like a society that has a bedrock of safety. So for those groups, I think it's just disappointing that they haven't chosen a more constructive mannerism to try to get what they want, which they have a right to have. But that's why we have a democratically elected process, right? Like we're not forcing flock on anyone. Elected officials know that as a community, you want to be safe. As a family, you want to be safe. And flock is the best way to create a safe community.
I'm not sure D-Flock would agree with the terroristic label that you put on them, but okay.
So now, I really don't think this is about your safety. And to be honest, it's never been. It's always been about control and how to manufacture ways for you to give up your rights and liberties on your own, because guess what? It is much easier that way. So hence, don't you want to help your neighbors find your dog? So what can you do? First off, don't buy a Ring camera, but if you have one, you can supposedly turn off this search party feature by opening the Ring app and going to the menu, the 3 lines in the top left corner, go to the control center, select control center from the menu, select search party, and then disable that feature by tapping or disabling and toggling off the setting next to search for lost pets. And you can choose to do this for all of your cameras or select individual ones. That I would highly recommend do at the very least. But based on my research, disabling that feature doesn't necessarily stop Ring from recording, storing, or processing your video data for its regular security services, nor does it prevent law enforcement from accessing it. Okay, back in early 2024, Ring announced that it would stop allowing the police to request footage directly through their app. However, just a year later, they effectively reversed this policy by integrating with a company called Axon to, once again, let the police request user videos, except now, instead of directly using the Ring app, the police use something else called Axon's Digital Evidence Management System to request the Ring footage, making the surveillance request process somewhat opaque to the general public, so we don't even know what's happening. And look, at the end of the day, it all comes down to trust, because we have devices all around us that are capable of recording and surveilling our every move, what we say, what we search. And the question we thus have to ask ourselves is, do we trust this company, or do we think they're gaslighting us for some other ulterior motivations? So maybe a good meme to end this video on is this one: Ring camera, we can help you find your dog. Now the question is, do you think that's what they're really after? That is it for me today. Let me know what you think about all of this. Do you have a Ring camera? If so, does this bother you? Sound off in the comment section below. If you want to support my journalism, you can become a member by going over to my website, 5149jameslee.com. You can also pick yourself up some merch there. But if you're not able to contribute monetarily, no worries at all. Just take a second to like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends and family, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you can be the first to know when my next video drops. And as always, love to thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next one.
I'm your best friend. You can do whatever you want right now. I'm Santa Claus.
Mm-mm.
I'm Santa Claus. Don't you want to be my best friend?
Yeah, probably not a good idea to leave them kids alone. That's for sure. Yeah, James Lee there. Like I said, it was a little lengthy, but you know, well, yeah, it was very, there were a couple of disturbing ones. The was it the Anti-Defamation League had one too, during the Super Bowl. Chock full of bullshit. But nonetheless, they, yeah. You pay the money, you get to broadcast on it. Also, the Epstein survivors, they did an ad too, talking about releasing more. I don't know if that's gonna happen. And yeah, the Antifa thing, you know, Antifa's out there, like, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. When people say that, like, you know, they're a terrorist organization, they're not an organization at all. It's just stupid people. We got our mutual aid, of course. We want to remind you of the links are down below in the description. If you want to help folks out, that would be great. What the Cheez-Its? Of course, Justice for Aspen is still raising funds for her legal fight in Georgia. She was a passenger in a vehicle with someone who was arrested. And of course, in Georgia, with their draconian laws, if you're in the truck with them, then you must be a criminal too. So if you could help her out, all these are at GoFundMe, by the way. Our buddy Chanda, who is dealing with cancer, of course, medical bills are very expensive, as everybody knows. If you can help her out, we appreciate that as well. Our buddy Cowboy Kitty, his sister-in-law, abducted by ICE, and she's dealing with legal funds that she needs raised to help her out so she doesn't get deported. I'm not quite sure what her situation right now is, but I'll talk to Kitty and see what he has to say. I think she was in the process of getting deported. I'm not quite sure. Of course, and our buddy NoliDee, whose place burned down, and she needs help in any way. If you can't donate, if you could share out the links, like I said, they're all down below. We appreciate that as well. And our buddy Kevin over at Black Bear News, who his home burned down during the LA fires, and he's still collecting donations for that too. So helping them out as much as you can is much appreciated. Of course, our friends in need. And if you have anybody else that you know of that could use some mutual aid, if you could email me the information at extrabulla@gmail.com. Appreciate that, and we'll put them up to spread the word as always. And speaking of spreading the word, tell your friends if you have any about the secret show. We've moved to tonight, to Friday nights, be 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific time on YouTube, Rumble, and the Book of Faces. So if you come out there for that, we have laughs somewhere buried in the show. You'll have to find them. It's like a one of those like an Easter egg hunt, only the Easter eggs are sad jokes. Finally today, on a lighter note, much lighter, New Zealand has its share of problems, one of which is a cat that steals underwear. And I'm not talking about some hip dude. I'm talking about an actual cat. Serial underwear thief at New Zealand school identified as Cat. I don't know if we could see this. We can turn that off. So here's this cat sneaking around looking, oh, that's mine. Thank you. I'll be taking that with me as I leave the premises. Nothing to see here. It's just me with like some weird shit in my mouth there. So a serial thief who has been stealing items, including towels, shoes, and underwear from a New Zealand school for over a year was finally caught on camera and identified as a literal cat burglar. Marama Stewart, principal of the Apanui school in Wakatani, said items had been mysteriously disappearing from the school for over a year, particularly during the season while the pool was in use. Initially, we noticed single shoes and goggles and undies and towels left along the footpath into the school, Stewart told stuff.co.New Zealand. The school posted a video to Facebook when the thief was finally caught on a security camera. The footage shows a black cat dragging a large towel across the playground. Why he's got to be black? You racist motherfuckers. When a pair of togs, those are swimming trunks, and a towel went missing, my office lady checked the cameras for our wee offender, and he was witnessed, and a large stash was found at the back of the PE shed. The physical education shed, I'm assuming that's what that is. Maybe PE means something else in New Zealand. She said the school's groundskeeper Willie made contact with the cat's owner, who confirmed their pet was a notorious thief. Can we see his owner wishes that he remains anonymous? We're calling him Slinky Malinky. Oh, that's not. I thought that was the groundskeeper, but that was Stuart again. My bad. She said the thefts are a learning opportunity at a school, which is appropriate. I think we're going to have a lot of fun writing stories about our own schools. Slinky Malinky, she said, and it might help our kids to remember to put their things in their bag. Otherwise, this thieving ass cat will steal your shit. And you know what? Maybe you deserve it. You know what? I'm not even going to lie. Maybe you deserve it. Or maybe not. I really shouldn't say that. That's it for today, folks. Like I said, we're going to have Secret Show tonight, 11 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Rumble, and the Book of Faces. This show will be back next Friday, I should say. Same time, 10 a.m. Eastern. Was it? No. 10 a.m., 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific time. And don't forget to join me and my buddy Laine on the Undercurrent on Wednesday mornings on the Undercurrent channel. That's the Undercurrent 4YOU on your local YouTubes there. Check us out. We're up to 60 subscribers now. So we're growing by small leaps and bounds, but we're growing nonetheless. If you want to be a part of that community, where we talk about news you can use. It's great. We more than love to have you come join us. That's the Undercurrent. The number 4YOU is the channel name. And come and subscribe, like, and share. That helps us out too. All that stuff. If you could like and share this show too as well, we appreciate it. You can donate to us like Willie did with super chats, but we also have what else do we have? What is the name of it? Oh, Patreon. I'm so stupid. We have Patreon and other ways you can donate to the show. All that stuff, that information is down below. It's on the little scroll there too that you can see right above the weather and time stuff there. That's it for me. See y'all this evening. Hope you have a great one, and we'll try and stay safe today. It's Friday the 13th. So yes, try not to use all your good luck up today, because you're gonna need it the rest of the year. Peace.
This is City Alpha 5. Woo!